Hey everybody, my last video got humorously cut short by a phone call, so I'm going to continue here. And the idea was that I was upping my concentration level and really pushing for challenge and excellence in the rest of this piece. So I'm going to just jump in there and try to get this last in between here. And this is going to be a recovery frame. Just looking at Kilo's face. Earlier I was experiencing some lag, so I just restarted the iPad. It's always good to restart your devices from time to time. It's surprising how many times I've had to do troubleshooting with either a Windows device or an Apple device, and restarting fixed the problem. Even with hardware issues, sometimes it just fixes it. So it's good practice to do. So this is a one frame of recovery, and I actually think maybe his face should be rotating back to where it was. So here, yeah, his face is never fully rotated. So actually, in this, the center line would actually be like through here. So. Yeah, here we can kind of see that other eye, so we'll kind of draw it in. Okay, we'll get his bangs in there and get those funny little Kilo strands in the front. Ear. Sideburns and strands. Making sure I'm matching the size of the hair. Always gotta have a little bit more on the back here. Maybe actually more in the front on this one. The nose might have gotten a little bit large here. We know that, and I've been saying this in almost every video, the face style from Hunter x Hunter is a small face with a huge cranium. So I'm going to keep that in mind. And do I have a topic of discussion today? Sort of. I'm pushing for excellence, pushing for challenge. There's a sort of overarching theme that I'm finding in the stories that I'm experiencing. What are the many stories that I've been reading lately? The Confessions of St. Augustine, which is a personal account of St. Augustine's musings and his journey through Manichaeism and a life of sin and lust, and how he turned to God from that life. I think the finger should be, oh yeah, his hand is actually supposed to be palm facing out this way. I remember that. So this is the thumb on that side. So I'm still in the middle of the Confessions of St. Augustine. It's very rich reading, very dense language, and it's a lot of writing. And it's not just the language that's dense, but I mean the language is actually not that dense, but the thoughts that he's having are very deep theological reflections, and great to experience his life. One of the first autobiographies ever written. Some might even say he sort of created the genre of autobiography, but by kind of telling his life in the form of a prayer. The speaking in the book is addressed to God. That's why it's called the Confessions of St. Augustine. He's not really talking to the reader. He's talking to God as he's writing, and of course, informing the reader of his internal reflections. Who else have I read? I read The Life of Anthony by Saint Athanasius. I've talked about this in a few earlier videos of the life of Anthony the Great, Anthony of the Desert, also known as Anthony of Egypt, who chose a life of asceticism and was one of the first Christian monastics, a life of total self-denial and a life in rejecting a life outside of and in society, and in favor of the life in a cave. And it's a weird choice for a Christian who might think, if you're going to be a Christian, you should be out and serving the poor. And even some of his contemporaries or monastics who came after him were critical of his hyper away from society feats. They can be described as feats of monasticism. Like, this is how much I was able to not eat, and this is how much I was able to do. And Anthony had a good Christian conscience, but sometimes his followers might take it as a point of pride, where how much can I do out here in the desert? What kind of crazy asceticisms, what kind of crazy penance can I do? Some people sort of took it the wrong way, and so I started reading the Rule of Saint Benedict, not the Rule of Saint Benedict, the Rule of Saint Basil. I grew interested in him because I named my son after him, and the name came up as one of the church fathers, one of the Christian monastics, and I thought, okay, why, and for me, why monastic living? Well, me personally, it's not the same as a monastic who chooses this life. But for me, as a consequence of my past decision, I've been in some situations where I had to kind of be isolated and kind of reflect on my inner demons, really. And I think that's a good thing that anyone should do. And I hope that people don't have to be pushed to points of desperation or points of conflict or points of suffering where they they have really no choice but to really approach their life from a really deep a standpoint of deeply challenging oneself. I think people can do that preemptively. But all these books have been spiritual. But I did get interested in the life of David Goggins, who is not a Catholic saint at all. And but what is he? He's an athlete. He's a Navy SEAL, or he was a Navy SEAL. And he just talks about, in his book, Can't Hurt Me, which is also autobiographical, his book about struggle, about a terrible childhood, about, living kind of degenerately, being extremely overweight, and then making the decision to go through Navy SEAL training, Hell Week, BUDS training. I forgot what BUDS stands for, but just this extreme level of training that I never could have imagined could be done to build the military. But Navy SEAL training, the craziest thing that I heard about Hell Week is that it is 4 hours of sleep, not per night, but spread out throughout the week. 4 hours of sleep in a week. So not only are you doing intense military training and exercise, but they're trying to break you mentally. So they kind of push the boundaries of what they do in the physical training, but also that you're not meant to sleep. You kind of just wake up and get back right into the grind. And it makes you wonder, why would anyone subject themselves to this? Why would anyone subject themselves to it? And it's like, okay, I get that you want to serve your country, but that, you hear about military boot camp and that it's tough, but this is a really a high level, another level, I would say. And it makes me wonder, what other types of military training in the world are there? Are there more intense ones? Are there less intense ones? And really, what's the philosophy and the purpose behind it? To create really hardy soldiers, to really create warriors who are able to suffer. And that's where the common thread lies between these readings of the Catholic saints, like Saint Anthony of the Great, Saint Anthony of the Desert, and someone like David Goggins. And this sort of overarching theme has been resonating with me lately, which is the willingness to suffer for a goal, whatever that is. And in the Christian life, that goal is what? Unity with God. And what does that mean? and we look at, and suddenly we look and remember the life of Christ, who is God, who had that willingness to suffer for his goal, which was the salvation of all mankind, the love, that love be awakened, that God himself be awakened in all people through the paschal sacrifice, the forgiveness of sins, the grace of God stating that, okay, if you disobey my statutes and laws, it's not okay, but you are given a chance to live because I love you, and that's the gospel message, right? And for me, what is that goal? Like, willingness to suffer is one thing, but I feel that we don't need to suffer in vain. And so I take a look at someone like Kobe Bryant, and his willingness to suffer is to be the best basketball player ever. Not just, to win in this season, but really to be the best ever is what Kobe was thinking about. Maybe not necessarily, the best of all time, or, better than Michael Jordan or whatever, but he wanted to be the best possible basketball player he could ever fathom that he could be, which in his mind was just pushing everything to the limit. So it's that, and in his book, Mamba Mentality, he talks about the willingness to suffer for a goal, and the things that he did in his training regimens, his conditioning, his collaboration with his partners, with his coaches, with his teammates, with his medical team, with his physical therapy teams, things like that. Just optimization, and that was an all too familiar concept to me, coming from a competitive gaming background. So as I read that, it doesn't seem as far-fetched as some of these other stories of the saints and of military men like David Goggins. It doesn't seem so far-fetched because Kobe Bryant is playing a game. But in all of these, the overarching theme is the willingness to suffer for the goal. And I've repeated that a few times now because it's something that I have never really been able to do. Not unwilling, but what does that even mean if I haven't been able to do it? So I'm an artist, and I guess I'm not just talking about in my career, but I'm really talking about in life. How resilient can I be? And Chris Williamson, he's another one of those conservative podcast guys. He mentioned, he likes to phrase it this way, that there comes a point for everyone where you're doing something that might be tough, and there comes a point where you're questioning to yourself, why am I still doing this? This is really tough. And he said that's a feature, not a bug, because if everyone feels that moment, the people who succeed in whatever it is they're trying to suffer for are the people who persevere in those times. That's why, all this heroic stories that we have are of people who are willing to sacrifice, people who are willing to suffer through that time for whatever it is their goal is, whatever it is they need to do, whatever it is they need to accomplish. For me, it's not that complicated. I want to work hard and live a good Christian family life. It's not complicated, but it does demand the willingness to suffer. And my whole life, I've chosen leisure. I've chosen ease. I've chosen, it's not a bad thing to have a support system. It's not a bad thing to have, activities that help you wind down, or to help you unwind. But if the purpose of life becomes that, then it seems to me that I felt that my purpose became more and more like contracted. It became kind of less meaningful and more about entertainment, and more about feeling good, and more about feeling good about myself than actually doing good. Because I don't want to do good to feel good about myself. That's not why. I want to do good because it's good. And for me, that good in my life is loving and serving my family, which is a simple task. And most men are called to do this, I would say. You can live a single life. You can, as Jesus said, become a eunuch for the kingdom of God. You can, give away your like virginity, your singleness to, basically, never make love to anyone, never have a wife and kids. And that's fine, but I would say that most people are not called to that. I at least I don't think. I think most people are called to be fathers. Well, speaking for men, but again, I can't speak statistically. I don't know the statistics on how many guys are out there who are single and unmarried and in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and who decide never to get married. But the question is, like, for what? For what purpose? In one of my earlier videos, the question was, to what end? And that's the question, really. To what end? Oh, you know what? I did it. Successful frame. I think that frame looks very good. I can still see that my lines are still not quite as smooth as they look in Krita. I think my lines had a lot of expression in Procreate. I'm catching up to it, but I'm still not quite there. Yeah. So, but I think this frame looks good, and we had a good little discussion, a little reflection here, and it all of a sudden became done. So I'm going to go ahead and save this one, and I'll talk to you guys later. God bless.